Thank you. I'd like to call to order the June 22nd, 2017 Board of Adjustment meeting. Roll call, please.
Hanson.
Here.
Stonebarger.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Shriver.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
Stein.
Here.
Albertson.
Here.
Arnold is coming along.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the June 8th, 2017 minutes. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stonebarger, second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item is the applicants Larry Height and Marlon West, doing business as Midland Builders. Permit number 17463 is looking for conditional use to construct a multifamily housing unit in an R2A single-family district. And I don't see the address there. Go ahead, Jill.
All right, like you said, Larry Haight is the current owner or the seller, and the proposed the buyer would be Marlon West, doing business as Midland Builders. The address, the applicant seeks conditional use approval for the construction of a multifamily structure with 4 attached dwelling units in the R2A single-family attached residential district, pursuant to 21-1804 and 21-1603-2, and contingent upon compliance with specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to 21-0202, 2B6A through H. The address will be for the units 514, 516, 518, and 520 5th Avenue Southeast. Staff findings. All public notice requirements have been met. 3 and 4 family dwellings is a listed conditional use in the R2 single-family attached residential district. The definitions of the proposed plan, they meet all ordinance definitions for such a facility: multifamily, attached row, townhouse, and dwelling units. The applicant submitted the attached site plan, which reflects or does not reflect the following requirements of the ordinance. Let me just bring that up. (21-0202, 2B6A through H). That is the specific rules governing individual conditional uses. This includes ingress and egress of the property, off-street parking and loading, refuse and service areas, utilities, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, and required yards and open space, along with general compatibility of the neighborhood. Chapter 2163, off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards. The minimum required legal off-street parking spaces are shown, and so that is met. Chapter 2165, outside storage and display requirements for specific uses. Outside storage was not indicated in the application, but 216501, the chapter of the ordinance on that, would apply. Landscape and lighting standards, Chapter 2173. The site plan does not show 5 frontage trees that are required, but the applicant will comply. Titles 5, 18, 21, and 24, sidewalk, trail, curb and gutter, and subdivision of land. The proposed parcel is a merger of 2 platted lots for which a development lot agreement is required in lieu of platting. This board must determine if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 21-0202, 2B6A through H, and the chapters and titles I just described. If application is endorsed, the board may consider conditions of approval such as limiting outside storage parking, paved off-street parking spaces, and/or any other conditions this board deems necessary.
Thank you, Jill. With that, I'll open the public hearing. If anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the conditional use. Come on up to... We need to have you state your name for the record, if you could.
Hi, my name is Shane Brockhoft. I'm the adjacent landowner to the south of this property. One of my biggest concerns is the way he's got his parking. I think it's going to encourage on-street parking. No one is going to walk half a block to their car. And 2 of the residencies don't have any front side parking at all other than on the street. With Diamond Ball Park so close, during T-ball games, them streets are single lane usage. There's so many cars parked along there now. 3 to 4 days a week.
Thank you. Is the builder here? Could I have you come on up and state your name? We have some questions for you.
My name? I'm Marlon West from Midland Builders.
In that, thank you. In that diagram where those two cars are parked, those are attached garages.
Right. Yep.
The two center units do not have attached garages?
They don't. And what I did on them to try to encourage them to park in the back is we put the kitchen entrance from that back. Can I go up there and point, Pat? Or
Yeah, go right ahead. So there's a rear entrance on those two.
exactly.
And those two center units are designed to park over in that off-street side.
Right.
In those diagrams, in between the cars, what are those blocks there?
It's
Yeah.
just showing grass and then sidewalk and then grass. And
Okay,
sidewalk.
gotcha.
You putting in a public sidewalk on,
Yep.
Warren?
2 sides, yeah.
Okay. And the parking is coming off of the alley. Is that a paved alley or is that a gravel?
It's gravel.
It's gravel, yeah.
All of the houses on the other side of the alley have absolutely no front parking at all. They park all their cars along that alley. Highway 81 is their frontage.
Jill, what he's referring to on that parking, so you're on the property right south of that?
I'm to the south. I'm 511 6th Street Southeast right there. Yep.
Okay,
That's
and-
my house
and-
right there.
Your concern with the parking is, would you say that again?
I think the way he's got it set up is it's going to encourage on-street parking because they're not going to walk that half of a block to their vehicle.
Okay.
Now, they can cut through the backyard, but I pull into the front of my house. I don't pull to the back usually. I mean, I think they're just going to park on the street and run through the front door. And that street with Diamond Ball Park there is congested, 3 to 4 days a week due to the park usage.
Would there be a fence back there, Marlon? Like a fence between the properties? Or would we see people walking back there constantly?
I was hoping to leave your bushes in there,
Oh.
you know?
Right, they're gonna be walking right along that south lot line to their back door.
Part of this conditional use approval can be to install a fence.
So those ones that are going to enter from the back side, is there going to be a sidewalk from the parking area over to those doors?
Yeah, that was my plan.
And how many feet from the building to that property line that he's concerned that they're gonna walk along? How far is that?
21 feet back
I think they have the measurements on the diagram.
there. Right there.
Because I know it did
21.
say it was catered to the elderly, but I can't see the elderly walking with their groceries, that far and stuff, which we'd love the elderly.
If you're gonna speak, we need to have you come up so they can see on TV.
All right.
Just looking at the drawing, it looks like it's 21 feet from the back of the building to the property line, approximately.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
And you're actually on 6th Street there. Now the parking is gonna be in the alley to the other side of the building.
So your concern is even though he's providing parking, you don't feel they're gonna use that parking, they're gonna park on the street?
Yes, I think
Right.
I think it's encouraging them to park on the street because that's where their front door is at. The two middle apartments have no parking at all other than that far southwest corner of the lot.
But there are the back
so you can get the bedrooms.
Jill, could you put up the aerial photo to see, so we can see what kind of a hedge or bushes or where they, where's the line of bushes you were talking about?
Yeah, they don't show up very well, but there's some.
Yeah, they
some
don't show
bushes
very well.
in
There's a few lilac bushes, probably
So where the camper
pretty
is.
close to the lot line.
Where the camper is, they'd just be straight to the east by the house.
Yeah,
right
they're
in there.
about there to there.
Yep.
It's quite overgrown. There's a lot of trees and bushes in that lot.
Marlon, why a fourplex instead of a threeplex? Did you ever look at a threeplex where all three could park in the front just like that other one is? That looks like those two center ones are single unit apartments, or single bedroom, and the two end ones are two bedroom?
They're both 2 bedrooms, and that's kind of why I didn't do the garage in the front, because then I can't get a window for a bedroom, you know, and they're not wide. The lot's not wide enough to get 2 bedrooms wide in each of those units. We
And
pretty
you-
much used it up with
Have you
it.
ever thought of doing like a duplex and selling it? It just seems like homeowners take care of their stuff a little bit more.
Oh, sure.
I don't
Yep,
know,
yep,
but-
and, yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, we could fit 2 duplexes on there too.
And that's another concern of mine is the curb and gutter is extremely old in that part of town. And I think an owner would be willing to have their, pay their share to have that repaired, where a rental property is just gonna leave it as is. And
And we're also talking about with other neighbors paving the alley, and we have to get all the landowners to be interested in doing that too. And we so far we've got most of them on board. So far, there's one that is thinking about it.
And this lot is almost a third of the block. It's it's 150 by 100 feet.
Marlon, would it be practical between the 2 garages where you've indicated is a grass area, is that what it is? Would it be practical to make that a carport of some type, if you didn't want to put a full garage up there, but to allow those tenants to park there?
Possibly, yep, or just pave it is what you're saying, put concrete so they could park there. I suppose that could be done. A little less grass to mow, I guess. No, I wouldn't mind
The
that.
fence would be something you wanted, right? So,
Anyone else to speak in the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion for discussion.
I'll make the motion with the additions with the, you had your pointer there, Jill? Point up between them. Right,
Scroll it
down,
down.
Right. Other way. Right over there.
Well, he wants to see the top of the photo.
Yeah.
Now you've got, in this, it looks like you have 2 sidewalks going out and grass in the center.
My motion would be to make that cement so people could park up in there, and then a fence.
Okay, clarification on what the engineering side of the extra driveways would be, is to widen the 2 existing, or 2 proposed ones to include concrete adjacent to, so there's still only 2 driveways. I don't want 3 driveways in that short a span of space.
Okay.
Plus, then it still would allow for some car to park on the street if they needed to. The idea is we encourage on-street parking where we can and try not to eliminate it completely. Otherwise, it does force people to park away from everything. So,
But the problem over there is it is really congested when the Diamond Ball's having their
yeah,
baseball
about
games.
3 months of the year or less. The rest of the time would be wide open.
Well, then we have snow to contend with, and it's a flood zone. The drainage there isn't well, and you start getting plows driving around vehicles, you're gonna have ice build up in the spring and
Okay, gotcha.
back
The
up the.
public hearing's closed right now. We're just in the middle of the motion. The first part of your motion is to modify the front side parking so that all units can park from the front.
Correct.
And then where was the fence?
The fence would be, yeah, south side of the property.
And to add fencing to the south side of the property line?
Correct.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the plan to modify the parking so all units can park in the front and add a fence on the south side of the south side of the property, a buffer.
I do have one other clarification.
Go
Are
ahead.
you telling him he can't have parking along the alley, or are you just saying he has to have alternate parking?
Alternate parking in the front.
Okay.
We didn't say we couldn't have the parking over there. We're saying that he wanted access to all units to have parking access in the front to keep them potentially keep them
I
off
just
the
wanted to be
street.
clear, because I encourage the parking that he's
Mhm.
proposing along the alley, because that's
Okay.
going to reduce congestion in the overall neighborhood.
Okay. And then,
One more clarification, Pat. Also, the fence, what kind of screening do you want? Do you know?
required by ordinance.
Okay.
Got a motion by Mr. McGuire. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Dolly. Any other discussion on it? Questions? See none. I'll ask for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Third item, Four Holdings LLC doing business as Westside Laundry. Permit number 17464 is seeking a conditional use approval for serving alcohol in the C3 Highway Commercial Zone at 7 8th Street Southwest. Jill?
The owner of this property is Dan Jensen and Dale Even. The applicant for this proposal is Westside Laundry. That is Jason Getty and Shane Thorstensen, doing business as Four Holdings. They run the laundromat in this building. The property address for the laundromat is 7 8th Street Southwest. The north end here is 802 West Kemp. The office is in front. Applicant seeks conditional use approval for the sale, serving, and consumption of alcoholic beverages and the operation of video lottery machines in a laundromat located in the C3 Highway Commercial District pursuant to 21-28033 bar or tavern and contingent upon compliance with 2.0102 location, which is not needing to be considered here as it does not apply, and specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to 21-0202 2B6A through H. Concurrently, the applicant appeals the terms of the following zoning ordinance regulations: Chapter 2163, off-street parking and loading requirements. All public notice requirements have been met. The applicant seeks to create a 400 square foot 20 by 20 patron lounge within the laundromat area of this commercial building, offering video lottery and malt beverages to their customers during their wait. If approved, they will apply to the City Council for alcoholic beverage license. Bar Tavern is a listed conditional use in the C3 Highway Commercial District per 21-28033, and the definition of bar or tavern is any establishment, including restaurants and gambling establishments, licensed to sell alcoholic beverages for consumption upon the premises where sold or provided. The term bar or tavern shall also include establishments licensed to sell alcoholic beverages for consumption off the premises where sold. The applicant submitted the attached site plan. Let me pull that up. Um, 21-0202, well, the applicant submitted the attached site plan, which reflects or does not reflect the following requirements of the ordinance. 21-0202 2B6A through H. Again, specific rules governing individual conditional uses. This refers to the ingress and egress and off-street parking and loading on the property, refuse and service areas, utilities, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility. Chapter 2163, off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards. None of the existing off-street parking spaces meet a minimum standard size, which is 9 by 18.5 or setbacks or anything. Public right-of-way boulevard is being used to accommodate parking space length. Chapter 2165 outside storage and display requirements for specific uses. There is no available area on this parcel for any outside storage, so that was not a factor. Chapter 2173 landscape and lighting standards. This substandard C3 zone property is lacking in required boulevard grass and tree improvements due to utilizing the public right-of-way or boulevard to help satisfy insufficient off-street parking. The parking lot requirements, there is no screening of the parking lot or dumpster as required by 217304. Titles 5, 18, 21, sidewalk, trail, curb, and gutter. The property is lacking in some basic infrastructure, sidewalk and curb, mostly due to utilizing the public right-of-way or boulevard as an over-width driveway in order to maximize customer parking. This board must determine if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 21022 2B6A through H and the chapters described. If application is endorsed, the board may consider conditions of approval, such as limiting approval to, for instance, lounge only or building only instead of the entire property, fulfillment of any or all lacking boulevard infrastructure requirements, and or any other conditions the board deems necessary.
Thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearings for anyone who has to speak against or for the conditional use.
Jason Getty. I am the applicant here, and our main goal here is to provide our customers with a place to enjoy their stay there. Currently, I'm having a problem where people come in and wash their clothes, put them in the washer, leave for an hour or more, because they don't have anything to do, and it's tying out my machines. So I'm trying to figure out if we can create a little space where they can watch TV, have a coffee, pop, snacks, beer. I'm not looking to start a bar casino. It's more of a patron lounge.
Jason, do you expect the downside on this property looks like to me there's kind of a minimum amount of parking. It looks like the building's been there a long time. The boulevard area is being used for parking. Do you expect it to increase the traffic, or will your traffic flow stay the same as what it has been?
We do not expect it to increase. We just expect people to actually just stay there. I do have majority of the parking there. 11 spots. But no, we do not expect a significant increase in traffic we don't plan on putting any signage outside. It'll all be inside for the customers when they come in.
So you're going to have somebody on site regulating the alcohol?
Yes, and that's the goal as well. I can't afford to have a person there right now full-time, and I have a full-time job and other business adventures where it's hard to be there all the time and keep an eye on it, because we have had some vandalism, loitering, where it just gets, it's not good for the area and it's not good for the business for my customers. We've had kids come in and wreck signs in there and so forth. So that is the goal, is to have a full-time attendant that would be able to watch over the property from when it opens till it closes.
Jill or Shane, do you guys know of any parking issues we've had with not having enough parking in the past? Familiar with any complaints or any issues over there as it sits with its current traffic pattern?
I have not received any complaints on the existing parking pattern. I mean, I do have concerns if we're inviting other people to be there, that there really isn't adequate parking for the whole facility. I mean, but it is what it is. If the same people that are washing their clothes are the same people in the lounge, it would seem that there's an extra parking, but they're not totally restricted to have to wash their clothes to be in the lounge either. So parking is of a concern, and I don't know how we would address that on his property by itself.
One other question, Jason. Do you own the whole building?
I do not.
Just the half with the laundromat?
Right, I lease the majority of it. Yeah, I guess.
What is your estimation of the capacity of the patron lounge? Like how many people could be in the patron lounge comfortably at any one time?
We just figured like 6 to 8. I kind of have a floor plan of kind of an idea.
I'm looking at that. And you made it that size because you're figuring that's how many people are going to be using the laundromat at that time, or any
No,
given time?
it just the space, to utilize my space to maximize where my machines are, and so I don't have to do a whole lot. That was the best spot for it, and that way, because there's a wall there, and then those dotted lines would be a window that you could only see out of.
By the folding table?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be like a 6 foot wide, I remember 3 foot tall window, to where the tenant could see out and whatnot. But there's a wall that goes there, so we wanted to wall it off right there where you could put a window there.
Right. Now, and I noticed that the game area, that's evidently the area where you're going to put kids'
Yeah,
video
and
machines stuff?
that's another thing we wanted to do. We didn't want to just create an adult experience. We wanted to be able to have, because there's a lot of families that come in as well, and we're family friendly. But we also thought it'd be nice to get some games in there for the kids, like whether it be a pinball or Pac-Man or something like that, and then maybe a little bit more vending machines for them. Those little quarter deals and things like that. So.
Is there a way that if the parents are in the patron lounge, that they can visibly see their kids in the game area? I mean, is there going to be window access, or they can?
Yeah, we were thinking of putting windows on probably either side of the doorway. Yep.
I noticed in your letter you're going to you wanted to extend your hours a little bit, but still be closed by 10 p.m.
Yeah, and that was another thing is we're not trying to keep it open real late, but I've also had complaints from customers that 8 o'clock is too early for them. Some get off kind of later for them to get done with all their laundry and be out of there by the closing time. So I've had numerous people that'll pull up about 8 o'clock, and it's hard for me to keep it open later, just as far as cost-wise, for only a couple people that come in. But if I can, we just thought if we can offer longer hours, it would be till 10 o'clock at night. And to be a little more competitive with our competitors, where we can be open a little bit later too.
And you do have some competitors that also have video lottery and
Correct.
inside.
Correct.
Did you say on those interior windows that you'd be able to see out of the bar area but not into it?
Right.
One way?
Yeah, that's what the plan would be.
One question I would have, would you have a problem with giving us a legal description of exactly where inside the building that is going to be, that top corner?
Yep.
Just to put, it gives us a bit of a guarantee that it doesn't spread into the entire laundromat or outside.
Yep, we have that on the site plan for.
It's right here.
Jill? Do we have any other laundromat operating in Watertown that would be similar to this request already?
I think you can answer that. I'm not familiar.
As far as, I'm sorry.
Another laundromat.
Magic
would
Mile
have-
Laundry has a video lottery in the
Yeah.
same building.
Right, correct.
With video lottery machine and serving
Correct.
serving beer? There is.
Yes. Yes.
Where would that be?
Magic Mile. Right by Exit Realty. Yes.
Okay. Do they have a separate door though that comes in from the outside versus directly from the laundromat into the?
Both. It's essentially the same. There's a door to the laundromat and a door to the outside, like this one. But
Before, yeah, and when you say that, I know that now that you say I hadn't thought about it, but before that, was that space in that laundromat used for something else other than part of the laundry before it was turned into the casino? What? What? Okay, it was a separate space for a hairdresser. Living quarters at first. Okay.
Now, Jason, you have several, if I understand this correctly, you have several of the larger machines in that area where this patron lounge is going to be. Right now you have several larger washing machines, correct? Or is that a different location in the building?
No, my larger machines are one in the middle there, and then over by that sink to the top right
Okay.
are my other larger machines.
So what is in this area right now?
There is a few washers and a few dryers.
And you eliminate those, or you're going to move those to another part of the building?
I would move them because I don't have, this is kind of proposed, that I would have 16 there on that right side there, on the north side. So I'd move those to there. And then my plan on the very north side, if you could move where it says 5 laundry machines, that's dryers. And the plan is to turn them into stackables, so I wouldn't lose any machines.
I have one question on your diagram. If you look over in the casino area, on the side of the wall where the door is, how come that line's dotted?
That would be where the window, see-through window would
Okay,
be.
gotcha. I just want to make sure it was a solid wall there. Any other questions for the applicant? Anyone else to speak on in regard to the conditional use? Come on up, state your name and.
Hi, I'm Leo Young, and I'm one of the adjacent landowners. And one of the big things that I see that isn't even being addressed, 5 years ago we were right here in front of the council for just about the same thing, except it was across the street at the old Dairy Queen. Now, John Maloney wanted to put his, he already had the restaurant, he wanted to put the drinks in there. And casino wasn't even being thought of at that time because that was absolutely out, because they already had enough casinos in town. Now, that being a residential area, we brought you a petition of well over 100 names. Out of all the people we talked to, there was 2 people that didn't want to sign it. One of them was just a drunk, the other one was a redneck that didn't care what people did. Oh, I should say there was 3. And it's kind of interesting that his name, the third one, is one of them that's on my adjacent landowner papers to come here to this special meeting. So looks like maybe he's planning down the road for something here. But I was born out in West Watertown. That's where I was at 73 years ago. And it's always been a laundromat. Across the street was Hunter's Grocery. And we had another laundromat where the plumbing place is. And that has totally always been residential. Why don't they keep it out on 20, out on the Magic Mile? Now, when they're moving all these machines around in there, it looks to me like they're planning on maybe getting out of the laundry business some and moving into more of the bar and casino business, which is where the money is at anymore. But it does a heck of a business as a laundromat, because we're 150 feet away. 20 years ago, I built a house there, and right now it's probably worth close to $250,000. And I'll bet you as soon as you let them have a casino bar in there, it's gonna go down to 175. Because I wouldn't want to go and buy a house and put it next to a bar and casino. If I'd have wanted that, me and Julie would be above the canteen. No, that's all I got to say.
Thank
I
you.
mean, all the people already spoke before, and it didn't do any good because our past mayor said, we had a similar deal in Rapid City, and they sued the city. God, we're afraid that John's gonna sue us. And that is the only reason why they gave him the beer license and wine license for his food place.
Thank you.
But that's all I got to say. Thanks for your time, people. Letting me vent.
Is anyone else here to speak on behalf or against the conditional use? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion for discussion. If you want to discuss first. From the public standpoint, the hard part with this is those properties are zone C3 commercial. They're commercial properties. They happen to be across the street from some residential property, so it makes it tricky and tough for us. That's why we ask some of the hard questions as to how we can wire things tighter as far as the space he can use, the number of machines he can use, how the entrances are, and his hours of operation. We would never dream of telling somebody that you need to close at 10 o'clock on Highway 212, which that property is zoned exactly the same as this property. The property's been zoned this way for decades, and the people want to use the property to maximize for what it is. They can't convert it to a house without going through enormous expenses. But that's the issues we have on this board, is to try to find a happy medium. Like I said, I've closed the public hearing and I'd like a motion for discussion. I have a motion by Mr. And that is to include the information we had in the packet as a specific legal description as to where this building is, the hours of operation that he put in there, and it's for only inside the building. It's not for outside the building.
I would like to make that motion, but I would like the patron lounge would be the only place where alcohol could be consumed, not outside of the lounge.
I have a motion by Mr. Stonebarger,
Second.
second by Mr. McGuire. Any discussion? I'll go through that motion one more time. It's under the conditions that the patron lounge is exactly as to where it's put, with legal description in the diagram, the hours of operation as he stated on his letter, and the alcohol can only be consumed inside the patron lounge, not in or around or outside the laundromat. Any other discussion?
I think it's important to note that he would have to, you know, he would still have to approach the council in regards to the beer.
Correct, Justin. Can you clear that? This is the first step in a phase as far as the usage of the property in the zone in which it's zoned. The next step is he still has to go before the city council for the rest of his licensing requirements.
That's correct. In fact, all of his licensing requirements go before the council. This is purely conditional use. So that's the distinction.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, go ahead. Can I get a roll call?
Hanson,
Yes.
Stonebarger,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Arnold.
That's 6 yeses, 1 no. The motion carries. Do we have any old business?
No.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Mr. Stein. Second by Mr. McGuire. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You can let me know when you're ready, Brandy.
Okay, I'm ready, Pat.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, June 22nd, 2017 Plan Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Hanson.
Here.
Stonebarger.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Shriver.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
Stein.
Here.
Arnold. Albertson.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion in a second? Motion by Mr. Stonebarger.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hanson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the June 8th, 2017 meeting.
And then I did hand out a revised copy
Okay.
to include John Herding's letter that he wanted for the public hearing that he handed out to us. So
Okay.
that's included in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. McGuire, second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Third item is the rezone of lots 8 and 9 North Lake Drive addition from an R1 single-family residential district to the RG residential garage district.
Okay. Let me get there. So the petitioner, Patrick Mahold, the owner of the real property, submitted the application and petition on June 2nd, 2017, requesting approval for rezoning and the current described property from R1 single-family residential district to RG residential garage district. The adjacent zoning designations are R1 to the northwest, northeast, and south, so surrounding it. The adjacent public right-of-ways will be included in the rezone. There's no floodplain in that area. 55% of the written consent by property owners adjacent to and within 250 feet of the proposed zone is required. An applicant has acquired those signatures and met the 55%. It is 0.7 acres, which is short of the 1 acre requirement for the RG district. The Pheasant Lane is not improved, but was used to achieve the 300 foot of frontage requirement. And then 571 feet of frontage, including North Lake Drive, Grouse Street, and Pheasant Lane, exceeds the 300. The intent of the residential garage district were for areas such as these. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the application to rezone the described property.
Thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the rezone.
Randy, I got a question.
Yep.
On this, it shows lots 8 and 9, and it shows a lot 10 that is close to Grouse Lane. Does this border on Grouse Lane?
Does it border Grouse Lane?
The
Yeah.
parcel we're talking about.
Yes.
So are we talking about 8, 9, and 10, or just,
8 and 9.
because it shows 10 in between 9 and Grouse Lane here. I don't know if that's a,
Can you point out with your pointer as to which one it is on your screen?
Oh, yeah, it does. This is the lot that Patrick Mahold is proposing to rezone, and then this is Grouse Lane.
Pat, can you clarify that?
That lot that is to the small was considered, excuse me, a road. It was supposed to be a road, and because of its angle to the hill, they decided to not do that and took the feet off of the lot to the right of that. And I don't know, I thought it had gone before the planning commission because I haven't, this is not the same plat that I have. It's like it, but the city of Watertown owns lot 10.
Lot 10 may be Grouse Street.
Pardon?
Lot 10's probably part of grouse there.
Yeah.
You're saying the plat you have does show you on the corner of grouse and pheasant?
Yeah, see, and grouse will probably, I think they changed that some time back. This was development goes way back, and I didn't know until yesterday or today, early this morning, that those lots are actually south of where you see that tree belt. That's all platted out too, but that remains in the county. So Pheasant Lane was to serve both sides. That will probably never happen because it's being farmed now. And so number two is that 139, my understanding was 139 was absorbed by the city.
Okay, excuse me.
Is that correct?
I think I have some clarification. It appears that Grouse Street was vacated, according to the parcel data that I'm seeing here, but it's still indicated as right-of-way on the GIS map, but if you turn on the plats and turn my screen on, Ray. Okay, so what you see here, the yellow lines are the parcel lines. If I turn off the parcel lines,
Could you zoom
these
in
are
a
the
little?
platted lines.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yes, I can. Okay, so this is the platted lines. If I highlight this is what is Lot 10, includes vacated Grouse Street. If I click on the adjacent one, it is Lot 9, including a portion of vacated Grouse Street, and Lot 8. So 8 and 9, Grouse Street, for all practical purposes, does not exist.
But with his two lots there, he's still over the 300 feet.
Counting Pheasant
Right.
Drive and...
And that's the way it's been interpreted since this ordinance it's been in, that if you're bordering two streets, you use the frontage
correct.
on
And
both. So
I'm glad you caught that, John. That was probably an old diagram that was used to create that, but just wanted clarification that Grouse Street has been vacated and absorbed by lots 9 and 10.
But with those two lots, even with that, he still qualifies with the frontage requirement on there, so. All right, thank you.
And there's no sewer anywhere close to these, so that's one reason why it's very difficult to try to build a house on it.
That's correct.
This is an area that garage district was thought of when we built that garage district, because it happens to be an area that was platted, brought into the city limits, but none of the streets were ever improved. So people bought lots assuming that the sewer would get to them, but the sewer's hundreds of feet away from them. So it's really not suitable for residential building.
Well, in regards to the sewer, it comes down to about the left side corner there, which is across from my property, and the sewer really comes down my driveway halfway through the lot and then heads east. So there's no sewer along that road down to about the old rental place. Or
Can you pan out, Brandy? And there is sewer on the other side of the road, but it's a long ways from there, if
Where's
I'm not
that?
correct. We'll show you here in just a second. If you pan back further up, I mean, it's 3-4 blocks away, probably. Yeah, see where it crosses way on the other side. You got to go further the other direction.
Oh, you want to go north?
Yeah, see right there? That's where the sewer ends. It's many, many lots away, and it would have to be run through down Pheasant Lane, and all those adjacent landowners would have to agree to pay for their share of the sewer. So that's why this area has always been thought of as a good location for a garage district, because there's not a lot of traffic, there's no improved roads back there, there's no sewer water.
well, it's all fronted by those trees.
Correct. Anyone have any other questions for Mr. Mahold? Is anyone else here to speak on behalf or against this rezone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mr. McGuire, second by Mr. Dolly. Any discussion on it? Any questions? I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is the replat of Lot 28, Block 2, Hidden Valley Edition.
Pull that up. Okay. Robert Arnold is the owner of the property and the petitioner who submitted a replat requesting approval to split Lot 28, Block 2, Hidden Valley Addition into 2 conforming lots, Lot 28A and Lot 28B, in Block 2, Hidden Valley Addition. The adjacent zoning designations are R3 multifamily residential to the south, A1 agricultural district to the east, R1 single family district to the east, north, and west. Lots 28A and B, Block 2, Hidden Valley zoning is proposed, or is R3 multifamily residential district. The replat will create 2 lots from 1 existing lot. Pompeska Drive will be extended by 75 feet to the north to allow for proper amount of lot frontage. That 3,714 square foot of public right-of-way will be dedicated by the plat. A turnaround on Lot A of Prairie Hills Development Second Edition could create desired turnaround for maintenance and sanitary services. A 100-year floodplain is present on site requiring FEMA guidelines and requirements for construction. A floodplain development permit will also be required with the building permit. The plat has been submitted to the Watertown Municipal Utilities for confirmation of sufficient easements, which they have signed off on. And with that, staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve to replat of lots 28A and 28B in Block 2 of Hidden Valley Addition.
Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the replat. Brandy, I have one quick question on Pompeska Drive. As this is replatted, Pompeska Drive is replatted, is that owned by the city?
Yep, it'll be dedicated.
So they'll finish that to improve it to match the rest of Pompeska and then give it to the city?
The developer.
Yeah, we expect they'll either extend the asphalt road or put their own wider version of a driveway in there.
Okay.
Some improvements will
But
be
and then
made.
that gets turned over to the city at that point then?
A portion of it will, yes.
Okay, all right. Lots are fully conforming?
Yep.
What's the zoning on them, did you say?
R3.
And that's what they are, they've been presently, we're not changing any zoning, we're just breaking the lots down to
Yep.
conforming lots.
Yep,
Okay.
just splitting it. And the reason it's in front of you guys is because of the dedication of the right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone here to speak on behalf? Oh, come on up.
Pat, I would just like to say I'll excuse myself from voting on this item because Bob is my brother.
Okay, thank you. You're in. Oh, you can't. So we need 4. Go ahead, Merlin.
Hi, Pat. Merlin Jites. I'm happy to see that those lots being used. The only question that I have is that right now, you see where it says Pompeska Drive, that's what they're going to dedicate. But below that is the end of Pompeska. Every day, 10, 12 cars drive up to that to peek into that some way or other and back up and turn into my driveway. And they've already knocked the light post down once, and I don't know how many a day, I don't keep track of it. But my concern was, and I asked Brandy if it could be brought up, that there be some kind of a turnaround in that property where they're adding the road, because with 2 more homes there, there's going to be just that many more sightseers or looky-loos or whatever they are, and they'll be backing up continually into our driveway. Now, I was told that there was a chance that Dennis was going to dedicate some of his property for someone to back up, but in there, my question is, how would an ambulance or a school bus or a garbage truck or anybody they can't turn around. Right now, they either turn around in Bob's land, which is now being asked to be split, or they back up into our driveway. And so, if I may just point out, here's what happens. They come up the road, stop right here. We live right here. They back up, they go up there, and they back into our driveway. We have a lamp post here. This one was already knocked over, and, okay, I guess you get it.
I'll switch the picture on you.
There is no road beyond there. The only place they can get is to back up in here. Or try to back up onto the street. There's no way, the garbage truck now backs up all the way from here, rather than driving up, because he doesn't want him to turn around in his property, which is probably so. But they were backing into our driveway. Now, I'm happy to see the development, but I would like to see someone address that so that it would be safety for all those that I mentioned. A school bus, I don't know if there'd be school buses or not, but certainly ambulances could be there. The garbage trucks are there, and looky-loos are there all the time. So if there could be my proposal to Brandy was a cul-de-sac there. And if that can't be, can there be a half a cul-de-sac? Can it be something where they can turn around and go back out? And then I'd also like to have a sign put up at Prairie Winds Hill saying you can't get out of here. You're locked in if you go in, you've got to back up. Or I'll put spikes in my driveway somewhere. But I don't want to do that. But that's my concern.
Customarily, Shane, what do we do in an area like this where we kind of have a...
How do you turn around?
I can't say I haven't probably turned around in your driveway, sorry.
Every one of you been up there, turn around their driveway. And everybody in here.
Sorry about the lamppost.
You got that taken care of. But that's my concern.
I just want to say one more thing. I excuse myself from the voting, and the city attorney has advised me to excuse myself from any discussion too. I can't even answer a question. So if I'm not replying to you, Merlin, that's why.
Can you pull that plating, that?
Yep. Oops, wrong one.
Not that one. That one's no good.
That one went pretty well.
That one won't work. Right here. What I'm told by Brandy is that the neighbor, the silent one, would offer something in here so they can back into here and turn around.
We could make a recommendation that they work with the adjacent neighbors to widen the
I
turnaround.
hope that they would put some kind of a cul-de-sac in here. So, because people are going to come up here no matter what. And if they could back in there, I suppose they might back in there. Who knows? They don't know. They can't. There's nothing there. That's all I have to say. But I would like, before that's approved, that be addressed, that there's certainly a way to get the heck out of that without being in our yard.
I'm Colin DeYoung, and I'm working with Bob on this. And we did look at an option of maybe putting a cul-de-sac or a turnaround in there. But as far as the minimum size for a cul-de-sac, it eats up so much of the lots that it wouldn't make it feasible to split them up at that point. So what's your suggestion? Well, I mean...
the sign at the end of the road sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and the spikes in the driveway probably too. But
well, we can do that, but I don't think that's the proper thing to do. But that's my concern. And I know that the neighbors have some concern, not as much as ours, because they don't live that close to that.
You know, I guess...
half a cul-de-sac we put in there, so they can turn around.
I think we would try to encourage something like that. You know, it's hard to make a comment to say that we've already lived with this condition for a number of years. I don't know how old Pumpesca is, but the proposal doesn't really change the condition that already exists. It does move the location of what exists there now.
There's a good chance they'll back around in 28A's driveway now.
Yeah, potentially. I would encourage them to see what they can offer the public for a turnaround. However, that will always be a dead-end street of some fashion. And, you know, say nothing happens there. The lot stays vacant forever. The conditions that exist there today potentially would then last forever. But I would encourage them to try to find a way to accommodate that, whatever that means.
And then we brought the sign issue up to the street department already, so they're actually looking into that because it does make sense.
And that's a public street, so that would fall upon the street department?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak in the replat?
Is there anybody here from the street department? I mean, how do they plow that now? Or what do they?
They drive up, turn around in Bob Arnold's lot, and go the other way.
And just pile all the snow on one of the lots?
Well, they pile it all in one way. They don't pile it onto the living side. They pile it in the wetland. But to turn around, they go into Bob Arnold's and turn around. Now that's going to be built on. They won't be able to turn in there. They're going to have to do the same thing like the garbage trucks have to do. Go up, back out, or back in and drive out.
Well, is there any accommodation that we can make with request to this plat that accommodates, Mr. Jeitz's concern, or other than we just say we hope they work something out?
In a different situation similar to this, we entertained that on Marina Bay Drive recently, and we were encouraging the homeowner to provide a alternate driveway for people to back around, for the garbage truck to back into to actually get turned around. I would maybe recommend that we approach this from a similar viewpoint.
Shane, would a turnaround or a spot on the other side, would that get into the wetlands information? I mean, we don't want to really get into that again.
I think
disturbing the wetlands.
I think looking at the aerial photo here, there's a little bit of upland area there that would provide that. But again, we don't have, this plat doesn't have control over that property. They would have to negotiate with that owner and entertain that outside of this plat, or modify this plat and incorporate it.
So that area would not be included in the wetlands. It is in the floodplain, but that'll be accommodated for if it's constructed.
But not part of this plat either. It's just an adjacent landowner there. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in the public?
Is it impossible to work with that wetland above that line? You know, when you're talking about the cul-de-sac coming through here, what about coming like this? Now, I know these are two different owners, but where's that Popescus? Popescus here. Is there enough there for a turnaround if we try to get a little bit of that one?
That's what we've kind of said. If we approve it, we would want it, the adjacent land, well, ask them to work with the adjacent landowner to see if there's a solution they could come up with. Luke.
But isn't that in contention to donate that to the city anyway?
Not sure on that, but it's not part of this resolution, so we can't really speak on it.
Well, second point to that, Luke Muller, First District. One second point to that is consideration whether or not you'd want to, in this case, obviously Pompesque is a dedicated right-of-way, but you could consider maybe some sort of a turnaround easement or something along that lines that does not turn into a dedicated right-of-way. It still becomes a maintenance there. But if snow removal becomes an issue, that's what I keep thinking of. If they wind up having to pile it somewhere or to push it, that would also leave a place that they could pile it on the property rather than pushing it off to the sides, and also provide a turnaround for them. I guess ultimately it sounds like the direction you're going is to encourage some form of easement or something for a turnaround. I guess my point is that it could possibly be on this property just as easily without having a full cul-de-sac on there. So it could be on this property or a neighbor's property in an easement.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
I'll make a motion that that the developer works with all the adjacent owners to put some kind of a turnaround in there.
Excuse me, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Stein. Any other discussion? I think that's all we can ask, is that they try to work with each other in there, because they have identified a problem that's there, and they're just pushing the problem further down the driveway. to the next guy's driveway that they're going to turn around in. Maybe also possibly some of those people that are going in there and looking are going to look to fish. If there's houses there, they may not go in there, or they'll go in to the farthest driveway and turn around. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, Brandy.
If we want to address Valley View preliminary plan, that would have to be taken off the table.
All right. Old business, we had a preliminary plan for Valley View addition that we tabled on June 8th. In order to discuss it, I have a motion by Mr. Stonebarger to remove it from the table. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, this is not a public hearing. The public hearing was held at the last meeting. Brandy, can you give us the recap on that?
So on June 8th at the Plan Commission meeting, the Valley View preliminary plan was tabled mainly on the concern of drainage as well as other concerns. We have received updates to the preliminary plan, and the main points to take away from what we've seen is that now, and let me pull it up here. Okay, so this parcel of land to the west being landlocked was addressed, and now 19th Avenue North will be an outlet, so then there's access to this land. Block 13, which is up here, those lots are now adjusted to align with adjacent River Ridge properties. And then on Monday at the City Council meeting, the annexation and zoning was approved for Phase 1, and but it was approved with this parcel of land being R2 instead of R3. Their updated plans showed how drainage interacts with the adjacent landowner's property to the west of the development. And per ordinance chapter 2304, the requirements for post-construction stormwater management as outlined in the post-construction stormwater management best management practices, VMP manual, must be met. And then as far as it's my understanding, the developer, Jamie Andrews, has reached out to the adjacent landowner, John Tesh, to discuss concerns regarding drainage.
Thank you, Brandy. Is the developer, their engineers, here to update us on where they're at with that discussion?
Hi, I'm Jamie Andrews with J&J Land Sales. First thing after the last meeting, I reached out to Mr. Tesh here, and we set up a meeting with him and Colin the following Monday. Had a real good discussion, went over a lot of issues, addressed a lot of things. I believe we made a lot of headway. I understand he's still got a few concerns, but I think we have a lot of them addressed to this point. In fact, I had another engineer just review the water calculations and look things over, and we did get a report back from them. And you know, everything looks compliant, and like I said before, we're here to be a good neighbor. I would like to think the efforts I've shown are showing that with what we've done and how we're moving forward, and have every intention of working with John now and in the future. I open it up as far as, you know, keep reminding that this is preliminary. We got construction plans to do yet, and I offered to John to keep him in the loop as construction plans get going, and you know, keep him abreast of everything that's going on, and I'm more than willing to take in consideration his opinion. We talked about some potential tile or different things we could do if, which we don't have concerns, but I mean, if there are concerns, we're willing to go the extra mile to accommodate them. and I guess I'll let Colin take over.
I guess the main concerns the last time we were at the meeting was over some of the detention areas, and I'll just go through quickly the changes that we made in regards to the drainage. The proposed bike trail along the western side of the development, we actually raised that up 2 feet and created drainage swales on the east side of it to capture all the water and divert it to the detention ponds, as well as to serve as emergency overflows out of the ponds during 100-year storm events. And then we also made changes to the lower 2 detention ponds, ponds A1 and A2. Can you go to go to the next sheet? And be the 2 ponds on the southern edge of the property there. We increased the size on pond A2 and A1 so that the the flows for the 5 and 100 year are below the existing flows coming out of that area. And then in detention pond B, which is outlot C, we didn't change the direction of the outlet. It still routes the water from the control structure south to the 14th Avenue road ditch and under the railroad. We decreased the drainage area by having this cul-de-sac drain down to this pond instead of up to there, which in turn decreases the volume that pond has to hold. We also incorporated the drainage swale along the east side of the bike trail for the overflow on a 100-year event. And then we also proposed having private drain tile installed on the west side of the berm because there was concerns of seepage, as the water goes down into the ground. This way we can capture it before it potentially creates problems on the neighbor's property. And then also there were concerns of the integrity of the berms, and they're going to be constructed as we show in the top right of this plan sheet, where it has a clay core that extends 2 feet below the existing ground or pond bottom, whichever is lowest, all the way up to the top of the berm, and that essentially creates a impenetrable barrier so the water will not seep through the berm. And then in this particular pond, we actually have 2 berms at the outlet, a berm we're creating along the west property line, as well as a berm that is over the existing sanitary sewer. And detention pond C, we didn't really make any changes to this other than propose drain tile through the grass swale, allowing it to remain dry and access across it in wet years. Detention pond E, we made a few changes to the outlet structure, so now the post-developed flows are less than the pre-developed, and that's the same for detention pond G2. G1, we increased the size and adjusted the control structure, so now it also releases at below pre-developed flows. And then we do also have a letter of assurance that we'd like to present as far as installation of the drain tile. this is something that doesn't have to be done unless, you know, the neighbor so chooses to have it done, but we're proposing a drain tile of adequate size be installed at the outlet of detention pond C to the railroad ditch. The 2 rows of drain tile next to the detention pond B, which will outlet into the storm sewer out of that drain or that detention pond and down to 14th Avenue. And then also a drain tile that will catch the water flowing through the railroad grade, and will carry that all the way down to the Big Sioux River.
How long do you think those dry dams will be? I mean, what would be a worst case scenario? How much water would be in there in a week? Or, you know, it's supposed to be a dry dam, so the worst case?
Well, worst case scenario, it's about, depending on the detention pond, but it's about 60 to 70 hours.
Okay.
To drain out fully, because you have your detention in the top stage, and that drains out, you know, anywhere from 15 to 25 hours, and then your bottom stage is the water quality, and that takes up to 40 hours.
And that one over to the east on the bottom is not going to be a factor, then that's going to drain to the south and down at the bottom on the east side. The other
Correct.
one, excuse me, is that east? I meant west then.
The west
The
side
one to the
here.
right.
Yeah. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to drain through a outlet structure, and we're going to pipe it along the bike trail to the 14th Avenue.
So that won't cross directly behind the property owner's house. It'll go further out toward the end of his driveway.
Correct.
Where the majority of the water currently is
Colin.
flowing through.
Right.
Colin, I think what might help these folks understand where the water has gone historically is, why don't you describe what you found with regard to the culverts under the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad? I think that would help them understand where the water was always expected to go and where it was designed to go.
We did have, under the railroad, there is a crossing on the north end, and that this crossing here drains this whole drainage area plus portion of River Ridge. These 2 existing culverts drain this large drainage area in the center. And this drainage area actually drains down to a culvert here, but this culvert has been silted in over the years, so it doesn't actually convey any water. The water essentially drains to the railroad ditch and then down to this 30-inch pipe under the railroad here. So these 2 areas drain through this pipe.
Colin, you talked about the bike trail you raised at 2 feet, created a swell on the east side of it. And you've also been talking about drain tile. All that water that runs to the south and ultimately the corner of 14th Avenue and under the railroad bed, under the driveway and to the river, is that all on top of the ground at that point, coming to there, and the drain tile is just on the west side of the railroad track?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, all these areas drain. This one will be in storm sewer. This detention pond outlets through storm sewer for about 500 feet. And then there's kind of an existing pond or detention area, so to speak, in this area. And we're outletting into that with this detention pond, and this detention pond.
So the only storm sewer is at 500 feet south of that second retention pond. Is that
Right, yeah, there's storm sewer that comes out of that pond, you know, a
Okay.
control structure and storm sewer out of this pond. And then this pond as well will have storm sewer that extends to here. And then there is no storm sewer crossing the railroad track. And the drain tile we were proposing would have an inlet on the downstream side of this pipe and then be underground from there to the Big Sioux.
I think you want to say, Colin, you meant that there's no new storm sewer intended under the railroad tracks. You're going to use the one that's there, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
And can I make a point on the tile? You know, Colin's pretty sure as far as that tile goes, that odds are it is not going to be needed. It's just we're offering it to go the extra mile. I know John was worried about getting across his field and doing some different things. That the soil down there is real sandy, and at the release rates, odds are it's probably, unless it's a big rain event, I don't anticipate any of that water ever probably hitting that ditch flowing on the other side of his driveway. But it's just like I say, a little reassurance for him that we're by no means trying to impact him in a negative way.
So Colin, ponds A and B drain south along 14th Avenue and go to the river that way.
Correct. Yeah.
And pond C, that's the one that's right across from John's house? That's going to drain north, or what's that going to do?
This pond here is the one straight east of his house.
And that one's going to drain south?
That one's going to drain south.
Yeah. It's an outlot C, but it's pond B, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, the pond north of that, then, is that one going to drain north?
This one actually follows the natural drainage course, utilizing these pipes, and then once it crosses the railroad, there's no definite path to the river on this side. It's more of a spreads out over the entire field as it goes to the river.
Does that adversely impact Mr. Tesh? Or is that
well, we are
sandy enough that it drains, or what?
This is type B soils over here, so it is porous. It is a sandy soil. So a lot of the soils in this development are more of the clay sand.
Okay, and G1 and G2, where do they drain to?
G1 and G2 drain into the north end of 11th Street system. This system actually feeds into Roby Creek east of 81.
They go into existing sanitary sewers someplace, or I mean to storm sewers?
Right, yep.
Okay.
The new storm sewer that's on 2nd Street there.
And, you know, kind of why we're pointing out the 5 pipe there when the railroad was installed, or, you know, I don't know any dates them pipe were installed, but there was definitely a reason. I mean, the railroad had a reason to put them pipe in, not just to put pipe in. You know, they obviously seen where the lay of the land, and first, you know, that's a place for the water to go. So
you've talked a lot about the south end. A couple of questions here. One of John's concerns a couple of weeks ago was that, I don't know which one it is, but it's the one that drains across the field, the second one down from the top on the left side, one more up. I think if I remember right, he was concerned that field, if that held water and might seep through there, and that field potentially could be wet and soggy for a longer period of time. Did you address that concern with them at all, or?
We did speak about that. Kind of the way we left it with John is you know, we're really concentrating on our phase 1. You know, we want to see how everything works in phase 1, and you know, if there are potential issues, we can, you know, we're moving down the road to be addressed. You know, like I reiterated John too, this is a 8 to 10, maybe 12-year project. I will have to come in here again in 3 years, so it's probably a good idea to try to get along and do the right things. So that's been our communication, and like I said, we've spoke about a lot of things.
Okay, and then the north one, I know there's probably some people here that are concerned about the north one that runs north through the addition up there. Anything different with that? You haven't talked too much about that today.
Well, we did look at maybe extending that pipe that is right on the south end of 20th Avenue and carrying that all the way to the control structure and just having an inlet on the back side of the curb. And that way it would allow them to fill in the ravine a little bit between their two houses, as well as not, have the continued run of water, through that ravine. So.
Yeah, because once it gets to that road, from the road north, then it's underground. It's in a storm sewer at that point.
Right. Yeah.
So you would go south further and then carry it under it's 20th, isn't it?
Right.
You would carry it under 20th all the way down to that draw.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned
Dennis, just to reiterate on that already functions as a natural storm pond. That pipe that's underneath 20th Avenue, that already holds back. When water exceeds the capacity of that pipe, it already naturally backs up into this whole area. So they're really just kind of retooling that, how that's going to run off of it in the future when it's developed. So that condition already exists. I just want you to recognize that that's what's already happening there.
You mentioned you met with Mr. Tesh, and I got the impression that in your view anyway, that you've worked out most of the issues that were brought up the first time we heard this. In your understanding, what are the remaining issues that we haven't heard from Mr. Tesh yet, but what is your understanding of what those remaining issues are, and what is your response to those?
Well, he doesn't. The best I could understand, I spoke to John yesterday, was he doesn't want any more water running across his property, is what I'm gathering, and maybe it's more water, which I guess as far as the water, more, how much, it's all controlled. It's it's all engineered, I guess. If it rains a half inch, he's never going to have water. If it rains 5 inches, you might have a little. Everything's going to vary on the rain events, obviously, and I'm willing to. I guess we'll have to let John speak for himself here in a little bit, and we're going to try to work and do whatever we got to do within reason. I feel I've went way above and beyond to this point, and I'm still willing to do more, but there's a point to where I gotta draw the line myself too, because I've got a lot of expense in what I'm offering, and I hired another engineer just to oversee things, and I didn't feel I need to go any more depth with the analysis, because I'm already hiring Azen to do it one time, and don't make a lot of sense to hire another full-fledged water study when we already have one that's sufficient.
One of the other non-specific water-related issues that was brought up by some of the adjacent landowners was the lot sizes on the north side of the property. Were those adjusted to match up with the lot sizes on the adjoining landowners?
Yes, we adjusted all of them, and they're all in line with the landowners.
They actually mirror the size of the ones to the north.
Thank you. Any other questions?
And I heard not ours, and I don't know if they're speaking about some up in the northwest corner there. I guess I never. We haven't considered that yet, but it's far enough down the road, and we'll listen to their input. If it's something that makes sense, we can consider that too.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jamie? Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate your help. John, you got a second? Want to update us on your side of it?
John Tesh, how's it going today, gentlemen? Jamie stated we have spoken on some things here. my main concerns is a simple question. How does this affect me? It still comes down to we're moving water from one area and now it's just going to be more onto another area. I still have to shed all this water. There are, like Colin stated, it's very light soil, so I have serious erosion issues, problems, concerns. I think I stated that last time. Colin, where did he go? 260,000 cubic feet? Does that sound right? 250, 260? For like C, does that sound right? I think that's what you told me. 7.48 gallons per cubic feet. That's just shy of 2 million gallons within 104 yards of my house. Does anybody feel comfortable with that uphill from their house? So, yeah, we have spoken about piping that. But now we're just taking that issue and we're moving it south to the road, and now the end of my driveway has to shed that much more. It's never had an issue up to this point, but I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you it's going to create a problem. Still some of my concerns. By raising that bike trail, maybe that'll help some issues, but you think of the springtime when there's still frost in the ground. What are they going to do with all that snow up there? Most likely it's just going to get pushed to the west. We get a spring rain, frozen ground. That creates a heck of a lot of water coming in a quick hurry. So obviously that's a big concern of mine. What happens if the ponds blow out? I asked Colin the other day on the number he used for this calculation. He tells me 0.25, which is a standard number to use for their runoff coefficient. Well, I've now been told that this ground should be unusually low. Well, what does that do to the calculation if he changes that? Well, it makes the ponds bigger. Well, I don't want to see Jamie lose any lots. I want to see Jamie build houses. I'm all for it. But if the number that got used is too high and these ponds are going to be maxed out, well, now that creates a potential of having a blowout, which I understand there has already been an example of that. Well, that just goes back to my question. If there's 2 million gallons of water 100 yards uphill from your house, do you guys feel my concern? If the top of that pond is the water's supposed to be here, and there is a major event and it does wash it out, well, where is it coming? They say, well, the railroad track will slow it down. That won't even be a bump in the road, and my whole place is right in that path. So those are still my big concerns. I guess one thing that I'm looking at right here, and it's in the ordinance deal, 24.0605, number 5C11. Provide information to the effect of drainage pattern on adjacent property. Provide survey data as requested for adequate information. Identify stormwater path to major drainway. Well, I've never been, as far as I know, there's none of this. There's nothing that shows me this is what's going to happen in this event. There's
in this map here, they address the adjacent property and where the water would be flowing.
One other issue that seems to be an issue in this town is the minimum recommended ground elevation, like for basements. Well, if the basement's supposed to be 3 foot above groundwater elevation, and there's a lot of houses in town that have not done this, I've witnessed one. I poured footings in a basement on East 14th Avenue this spring. We're pouring footings on P-rock where there's water coming up through it. How somebody would want to live in that, I don't know. If they lose the power for an hour, their basement's done. So my point here is now we're going to create a base flow, which is basically going to be steady water trickling. And that's another issue. Obviously, pond C is the one right by my home. Obviously, that's my biggest concern because that's my yard and that's the closest one to my house. Now, the next one to the north, if whether we drain tile that or whatever, there's still going to be a constant trickle, which all it's going to do is create an issue on my side of the property. I guess these are still my biggest concerns. I'm willing to work with Jamie. I have a bunch of pictures, but Pat, you probably got a ball game. I don't want to waste your time, but there's the next culvert to the north that comes out of the addition to the north. It's completely saturated all the time. When I was younger, before all that stuff got built up there, you could cross it with a 4-wheeler. Well, now it's 4 foot of water. It's eroded. There's no way you're going to get across it, and there's constant flow. You go on the other side of the tracks, and it's ponded. There's water standing. There's cattails, all this and that. That's my major concern, guys. Is I don't live on a wetland right now, and I don't want to turn it into one. So with our piping, I think we're getting close. I mean, I think that we're draining C. Well, we're almost to the road. I'd sure like to see it go to the road, cross the road, go under my driveway. I don't care, but I don't really want to shed that. Colin described the 2 stages of a holding pond. Well, the top half is the storm water, and the bottom half is where all the stuff settles, oils, chemicals, everything else. I don't want to shed that across my property either, because the Big Sioux River, they say right now, is one of the highest polluted rivers in the state. Well, sure it is. It comes through Watertown, Brookings, and Sioux Falls, so I'm sure that's the case. But I'm not crazy about all that stuff coming across my property either. So I want to be easy to work with, but I also want to see the right thing and the proper thing done that does not negatively affect me. I guess that's all I have for you, unless you want to see a bunch of pictures again.
Anyone have any questions for John? I think we got a lot closer.
Okay. I just want to clarify something too. At the request of Mr. Tesch's attorney, and he's hired an engineer, so I've provided all this data to the attorney and the engineer so they can do their own research and bring more information to this conversation when they're ready for it, I guess.
I think what we'll do is, I look and go, I think we've made great strides with Jamie. I think you've done a very nice job of trying to work with John. And John, I've written down some of the concerns you have. I think we addressed some of the early ones, but it looks like to me your concerns are erosion, the volume of water, what happens in those spring runoffs when the ground's frozen and it's a 70-degree day in March, and then the strength of those ponds and the blowouts, and what I think we need to try to get you some assurances as to what will and can happen and how you're protected from that. And I understand there's another engineer involved. We almost have as many engineers as we have board members now, by the way. That's always nice. But I think what we do is I'd like to retable this. I think we've got enough substantial data. We're making strides in it, but we want to make sure we go at the right speed. Is that okay with you, Jamie?
My only and it's not a concern, and like I reiterated before, is this going? This is preliminary. This isn't final. It's gonna. We got a lot of changes to make. We're gonna show all that, but I mean, we're talking another 2 weeks. Then we're talking another 2 weeks, and pretty soon, you know what? It's the end of the year. I'm paving. I didn't want to get into this, but you know, I've invested a lot of money in Watertown and want to keep things. I'm not looking to speed things through, but move along. I think I'm showing I want to move them along right. You know, I reached out and just about bent over backwards, and there's the point where I feel like it's going the other way, and I don't, you know, it's getting frustrating, I guess.
Shane, with what you've heard is where John's concerns are. Can we, if we hold this off for 2 more weeks, can we say at the end of 2 weeks, we are going to make a decision one way or the other? We're not going to, I don't want to kick the can down the road, but I want to do the right thing and make sure we don't, you know, it's hard to unring a bell down the road. And I understand from a developer standpoint, there's a lot of other moving parts in this that you have to make commitments to people to come in for the logistics of your development. And the one thing we have to remember is we're moving this forward in phases. That far end phase is going to be quite a ways down the road. What's your thoughts on it, Shane?
Okay, well, I'll reset the baseline. We have a stormwater manual. We have our ordinances. And to the best of the ability of the efforts that my staff has done, I've hired Helms and Associates to help give an opinion on the hydraulic analysis. And Jamie has independently done his own verification of the hydraulic analysis. I think what I would recommend is that you do retable this, but when we untable it, and we have provided this information to Mr. Tesh, his attorney, and his own design team, I think we need to revisit all of these items. But from a baseline, all indications is that the developer and his engineer have essentially fulfilled the stormwater data that is required within the city of Watertown's system manuals and what we're requesting. So what I would hope we would receive from Mr. Tesh and his team is that he needs to find proof or something that refutes that we haven't done what was expected in our manual. And I'm not saying that burden's purely on that aspect, but I mean, we do need to recognize that if sump pumps run in these basements, that water is going to run whenever the sump pumps operate. That does happen throughout Watertown. I don't care where you live. If you live on the lake, if you live in Northridge, wherever, those sump pumps do run a significant amount of time. I actually happen to live down in the floodplain, and my sump pump never runs. But so it's varies from region to region in the community. The majority of these lots are set up for walkout basements, so I don't anticipate that there's going to be a lot of sump pump needs unless they dissect some underground sand lens or something like that. But we've talked about this being light soil, so that the possibility of that is much diminished than other parts of town where we have heavy clays where the water does collect and gets encountered when you dig basements. But let's address that. I mean, I do see John's concerns where there's where the baseline flow, maybe a little tiling would help with something like that. The basic premise of the way the water flows between Valley View and the Big Sioux River has and always will be over the land that John Tesh owns. It has always flowed to the Big Sioux River. It will always continue to flow through the Big Sioux River. The question is, are we managing the water that is now collected from a development and responsibly releasing it to where it has always gone? In my opinion, I think that if the design manuals are followed, we fulfilled our obligation with regard to that. And there's case law all over the place that deals with shedding water onto or withholding water from other lands. In fact, I would almost say that we could dry up the triangle piece of John Tesh so that it's an arid, dry piece of ground that can't subsist on its own runoff. I mean, that's the reality of being next to relief. And the other point I'd like to make is that we did a development, previous history in Watertown, called Skyline Drive, all the way from the hospital down to 10th, from 10th Avenue all the way down to 3rd Avenue. Yes, there are some minor drainage issues there, but we have yet to wash out a single home and destroy something. And that was all done before we had the stormwater provisions that we have today. So I would think that we've actually improved the conditions and realize that we're striving to protect people like John with our current ordinances and our storm manual. And I hope we can come to some agreement with John that that's what we are doing, is in fact trying to hold back the water, release it responsibly onto his property so that he won't see any significant damages or depreciation in what he feels is the value of his land. And I hope we can convince John that that's where things are at, but I think we need to give his team a chance to evaluate it and substantiate his concerns or not have them go forward, I guess. So I embrace having one more discussion.
I would just ask this question, though. If we're talking about tabling it, I would like to understand what we're waiting for. I mean, what new information are we expecting between now and our 2 weeks from now?
And I can't speak to that. I think what I want to do is give John the satisfaction of having his own experts evaluate whether we're addressing his concerns or not. And that's the only thing.
Well, and I understand all that, but we've sat through 2 meetings with this now, and we're not approving this. We're not approving this. It's not the final plan. This is preliminary. We've got to remember it's preliminary. This meeting, they came back and made a lot of changes that were brought up last time. They need to go back and as the 2 parties come together and continue to make changes. But if we keep tabling this and don't take it through the preliminary stage so that they can finalize it and take it to the final stage, you lose another month on this, another 6 weeks. He might as well throw the towel in because nothing's going to happen. He's lost a year. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we're approving it, but we've got to keep the process going. Approving a preliminary plan doesn't mean it's going to happen at all.
And that's
Nothing
why
happens until a final plan is approved.
And that's why I jumped up here, and I've been, first thing I did was went and met with John on the issues, and I do care about what we're doing. I'm not going to try to run over. We're not going to, if he provides the data that, hey Jamie, this is a dangerous pond above my house, if something, this isn't right, we're not going to put it there. I mean, I've got a family. We're not here to do that. That's
and see and that's what I'm saying. If you come to the meeting where we're looking at a final plan, and you 2 parties are at odds and you're disagreeing, it's not going to pass.
Right.
And
that's where I'm
going to have to resolve those issues. But I just feel we need to take it to the next step.
Let's take one step. Will you describe the process? We don't have a final plan. The preliminary plan is, in a sense, the final plan.
Well, that's one of the
that's the rub on our ordinance.
That's one of the tripping points in our ordinance, is that we require a lot of data to be presented at a preliminary plan. It's labeled a preliminary plan. It actually functions more as a master plan. Either way, this is the point where this board approves it or disapproves it. And then based on this approval is where they can go forward and ultimately do final design plans and plat. They cannot plat until the preliminary plan is approved.
So take one step back. Our preliminary plan is where we, in a perfect world, we'd truly have a real preliminary plan. But what our preliminary plan is we require more data. If we approve the preliminary plan, we don't see anything on this again until they come into plat.
That's
and
correct.
They plat off the preliminary plan.
They can.
There is no one more look at it.
If we approve a preliminary plan, we haven't approved a final plan. I can vote yes today and no next month.
Right, but what can happen is, this is the final step for the planning commission. Except for a plat will come forward out of this, then you get a chance to visit about the plat. But all of this hydraulic stuff isn't directly tied to a plat, albeit. And then the plat does go to the city council for ultimate approval. But as far as the preliminary plan and the overall development ideas, concepts, this is where you guys, your tires hit the road right here. You approve this, then you do get to consider the plat, but the plat is just a subsection of this, not necessarily the whole thing. He's not going to plat 130 acres of land. He's going to come to you with what we remember back it's a month ago, you guys approved the annexation and the zoning on phase 1 of this. That's what he's striving to get, but he needs the preliminary plan approved before he can even go forward with his phase 1 portion of this project. And I agree with you that at some point we just have to make a decision to approve or disapprove this plan. My personal opinion is that they've done a great job trying to appease all of the concerns that were brought before this board at that hearing. I know that they don't have all of John's questions and concerns completely answered, but I think they've made great strides towards that. And I think my gut instinct is that we fulfilled the city's obligations as far as what our plans and stuff ask for. But I do want to recognize that John has not had his own expert have his final say. And that's, so whether you table it tonight, whether you approve it tonight, whether you disapprove it tonight, that's up to the Plan Commission. But I think one more discussion on July 6th meeting, but we better be ready to make a decision at no later than that point in time.
Well, and my only concern once again is it's 2 weeks till 2 to 3 weeks before they get construction plans to where it goes to final. I mean, we're kicking the can down the road a month again, and if there are issues, if we're not meeting and getting together, I can't imagine City Council's going to approve this, are they? Or am I wrong? Or am I not getting what you're saying?
City Council does not see the preliminary plan. They see the plat.
Right, but they're not going to approve my plat if I'm still having issues with Mr. Tash. I can't hardly believe that what happened.
I don't.
You know, or that
I
we're,
can't
we're
speak
not
for them.
right, but we're not fulfilling, or we're doing the wrong thing. I think I guess that's where I stand.
And also the construction plans, that goes to the city engineer's office for all of the final plans. And then amendments, if they need to be made, then that'll be brought back with the preliminary plan, if there's anything substantial.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Jeff Banks, I appear with Mr. Tesh, as you heard him speak earlier. I have had discussions with the city attorney and city engineer, which I appreciate. I just got a copy of the revised plan about 3 hours ago. Haven't had a chance to review it. We would ask that you adopt the city engineer's recommendation to give us 2 more weeks to come back on July 6th. I know that John is appreciative of the discussions he's had with the developer, but as they both agree, they have not been able to resolve their differences. John does have serious concerns that I think he's been pretty good about making you aware of them. And as the city engineer outlined as well, if you approve the preliminary plan, you don't get to vote no on it down the road. You consider the plat, but not the plan itself. And the plat's not going to have your hydrology and so on. So to allow John to be satisfied and to allow, perhaps, hopefully, he and the developer to come to an agreement to make sure that the runoff is properly addressed. Again, we ask that you adopt the city engineer's recommendation and that we come back on July 6th.
Do you think by July 6th you'll be able to come together?
As to whether we can come together, I can't answer that. I know that we will have reviewed all of the plans, the reports from Helms and Associates. I know there was a report from Banner that I haven't seen yet. Our engineer hasn't seen it. So I can't answer whether we will resolve the differences, but we will do everything that we can to get John satisfied.
I will make one last statement. We do not, our whole system does not require that every little protest of issues, whether it's the style of curb, I'll really get crazy here. I mean, or preventing walkout basements or whatever ridiculous thing you want to think of, all the way down to the serious things that John's worried about, or what his serious concerns are. But in the end, we don't need 100% concurrence between the developer and the adjacent landowners. What we do need to know is that we've done a responsible review and are confident that we're not going to egregiously omit something that could impact them. And I think, so whether or not John and the developer agree 100% on July 6th, I think we need to at least have everybody restate their final arguments or final standpoints, and then you need to vet that and make a decision one way or the other. Does that make sense? There may be some value in letting Mr. Tesch's design team at least review this material and give their final report.
Where I'm having a hard time is we're within the parameters of everything and the way everything's written. We've went above and beyond, and I know we'll get there. But once again, it's this 2 weeks is essentially another month for me, and it's tough. I mean, maybe I should go. Do I farm it now? Or, I mean, that's going to get to the point where it is, or it's frustrating when, and I think Colin and the engineers have done one heck of a job to get this plat where it is. It hasn't been pushed through. We started working on this in January. It's been a long road to get here. And I moved up. We closed on this thing early because things were going well, and then here we hit this roadblock, which I feel we're not doing nothing wrong. We're within the parameters of, like I said once again, everything's done right. It's done to city standards, to what you guys want. How could what can I do more? That's my question. That's where I'm just it's real frustrating. And if I would have known we're going to have hurdles like this, it's just frustrating. I'll leave it at that.
Well, it seems to me, and again, this is just my opinion, but with due respect to all the parties involved, we've had 2 meetings. The contractor and the adjacent landowners have had interim discussions. I just get the sense that we're waiting 2 more weeks to allow, certain parties to come back with other, opposing viewpoints. So we're going to be right where we are right now. We're not going to get to the point where everybody's going to agree. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion. And meaning, my point being is, I don't think waiting 2 weeks or tabling this for 2 more weeks is going to accomplish anything. We should, in my view, I just don't know that there's going to be any new information that's going to change, change the dynamics where it's going to make it really clear one way or the other. I think it's going to be contentious on certain issues, and I get that, and I respect everybody's perspective, but I just don't know that we're going to know anything more definitively 2 weeks from now than we know today.
I'll just ask a question, probably, and I'm not from both sides. I'm trying to look at this, but the first question, is there anything in this preliminary plan that does not follow the city ordinances and everything that as what we require in a best management practices and everything? Has he met all of those?
In my opinion,
Okay.
yes.
That's the way it seems to me. The
For-
last 2 weeks, we sent them back then to come together as parties and work out their differences, right? That's what they've been trying to do, and they haven't quite come together yet, the way it sounds. Okay, I'm just,
Shane, is the formulas we use in our best management practices and the methods, are they solid? Are they exactly what, have we followed them? Are they I would say, the expected methods to be used?
Yes.
I mean, it's in our best practices manual. I assume they're the acceptable methods that are used in.
Helms' original review of the analysis did note some minor things that needed to be addressed, and we've now received new information, and I have provided that to Helms. I have not seen their final report back yet, but I expect that the adjustments that the design team made will probably address those, because that's what was identified as the minor issues. And so my summation is that will all have been resolved. In all due respect, I have not seen that final determination from Helms, and I have requested that I have that data prior to setting up the next agenda.
When that data comes back from Helms, it will verify that we followed our best practices manual, the formulas, the methods that we're using in our design manuals are being followed
correct
to the T. But you want to see that last
confirmation
from Helms.
Yep.
Question: Can it be? I mean, is there obviously some contingencies we can approve this with, as far as that what Shane was just speaking about, the confirmation coming back from Helms, or contingent between meetings that John's review team, there's no major hurdles, or I guess I'm just, like I said, I'm just some question I don't know.
I think we can approve it with any contingencies.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the preliminary plan pending the resolution of the issues that Helms comes back with.
Say that one more time, John.
What was the last part of that, John?
We approve the preliminary plan with the condition that all the issues that Helms may come back with are satisfied.
Okay.
To meet our best practices, formulas, methods, etc.,
Right.
is what you're talking about, to make sure that Shane is satisfied with the contingencies that
And according to our best management practices too, we reviewed that for the 2.4 for the preliminary drainage plan, and everything was followed.
I have a motion by Mr. Stonebarger. Do I have a second? A second by Mr. Stein. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Hold on.
Oh.
Is the hearing still open? You've closed the hearing?
There was no public hearing today.
Okay, thank you. I live in...
Then I'll ask you your name.
My name is Alan Steger. I live in River Ridge Estates, 20th Avenue Northwest, Block 1, Lot 54. And we've had quite a bit of discussion around the southern portion of the development. And I think the Planning Commission needs to review the drainage plans in the northern portion as well before you make a final determination. There's a comment made earlier that I was confused by, and perhaps we could bring up the northern portion. You can see in the detention outlot E, that entire area currently drains with the exception of a small portion that goes under 20th Avenue. All of that water drains through a drainage area above land around the River Ridge Estates development, including the future development that will happen. I'm not sure that the commission has fully recognized that. There's a comment made about it goes into a stormwater sewer, and that's not correct. And so I think before you approve this, you should really take a look at the northern section as well, and ensure that the flows and volume will not be excessive for the northern portion of the development.
Well, what I said was it goes in a storm sewer on 20th there, and then it runs underground in a storm sewer till it gets to that draw that you're referring to. My son lives
Correct.
right there. The storm
Yep,
sewer
correct.
runs right beside his house.
So all of that water drains above land today, and the concern that I have, and I'm not opposed to the development, but I want to make sure we don't take what is a wetland today and turn it into a mini river because of the additional volume in a high-density development. And so I just encourage the commission before you make a final decision to consider the northern portion as well.
It's my understanding that that pond will drain and be released at the rate at which that culvert can handle it.
I think that's correct, the same rate, but if there's an increased volume of water that may drain over the course of 2 hours today may take 70 hours
held
in
in
the
the holding
future.
pond.
Well, that's the whole premise of drainage. If you want it all at once, you would be if you didn't want it all at once, then you'd be arguing like John's arguing. We're managing the water efficiently as we can from a new development into a previous development. I don't know what else to
Okay, will there be
explain.
more water?
There always will be more water.
So more water drains at the same rate?
Same
will
rate,
take
correct.
longer to drain?
Yep.
Okay. I think you should consider the northern portion of the development with the same intensity that you've considered the southern.
And we've vetted the same
Okay.
type of data. It's being designed with the same scrutiny. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Stonebarger, a second by Mr. Stein. Any other discussion on this, guys? I think we need to make very, very, very careful decisions and assurances that we are following everything in our manual. The frightening part is you can go back and forth and look at different numbers and see them different ways, but I think all we have to work with is our design manuals that we use, the formulas we use, and the methods that we get to that data with. I think we have to be very, very careful that we do it correctly. The one part of me that says, well, should we wait 2 more weeks, is it's hard to unring a bell if you do it wrong. And I think we just have to make every assurance that we do this correctly. That's just my thoughts.
And just to clarify, Shane, on the Helms and Associates review that they're doing is over the full area of the north as well as the southern area?
All drainage basins were evaluated, yes.
Any other discussion? I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any new business, Brandy?
Nope.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Mr. Stein? Second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.